Electrician for the Body, a profile media feature by Melisa Jones. When I walked into the office for my first interview with Camille Vardy, carrying my recorder and my type sheet of questions, I thought I already knew what answers to expect. I had been going to Camille's for acupuncture treatments almost every week for the past month. My mother, who is also a patient of Camille's, introduced me to her when my anxiety problems did not improve. She thought that Camille would be able to help direct my energy into a more positive form. I had never given thought to how that was supposed to work and where it came from. I knew that it worked for me at least, and that was pretty much it. After my interview with Camille Vardy, I realized that there is so much about acupuncture that people like me don't know and misunderstand. Acupuncture is far from just a Chinese treatment involving needles. It is so much more complex. So what exactly is acupuncture? According to the American Academy of Medical Acupuncture, acupuncture is a method of encouraging the body to promote natural healing and to improve its functioning. This is achieved by inserting needles and applying heat to precise points on the body. The scientific explanation of acupuncture is that by needling the points on the body, one can trigger the muscles, spinal cord, and brain to release chemicals that can either change the experience of pain or influence the body's internal regulating system by triggering other hormones and chemicals. While acupuncture is usually associated with pain control, it can also be used to treat digestive disorders, respiratory disorders, neurological and muscular disorders, and urinary, menstrual, and reproductive issues. While it's easier to go online and look up the definition of acupuncture, it's much better to go and talk to a seasoned acupuncturist, which is why I paid a visit to Camille Vardy. Camille's office is one of many inside of an office building located on San Antonio Circle in Mountain View. The building is built around a small garden with a tiny pavilion sitting in the middle, surrounded by green leafy vines. The garden provides a perfect setting for meditation and relaxation and is viewable through a large window in one of Camille's treatment rooms. Camille's office is almost devoid of any sound. There's a set of chimes tied to her door handle that ring when you come in, and they sound as loud as church bells. Numerous painted Chinese wall scrolls hang in her office and treatment rooms, along with plaques depicting Chinese characters, which are uninterpretable to me. Camille and I decided to have the interview in her small waiting room, over a small table on which sits a box of herbal tea. Camille is a tall woman with dark, wavy hair and glasses. She speaks in a relaxed but precise and to-the-point way about her career and her patients, and her voice is almost therapeutic. When Camille was 13 years old, she received a book on herbs and a book on nutrition, and from then she knew that she wanted to go into some form of alternative medicine. When she was in her mid-20s, she received an acupuncture treatment from a longtime friend. She describes the experience as profound.
It was such a profound experience having my first acupuncture treatment. I got off the table and I said, wow, I want to learn how to do that. So I called up the school the very next day and I started in the very next class.
Camille has also studied in China and in New York for 6 years under a man named Jeffrey Yuen, who had an 88-generation lineage. Additionally, she attended Five Branches University in Santa Cruz, working on a 4-year master's degree program. The program had 25 to 30 units a semester, and Camille remembers studying 12 to 14 hours a day for 4 months in order to prepare for the 4-day licensing exam. Besides doing treatments at her office, Camille teaches acupuncture to not-so-young adults at Five Branches University.
It's actually a really hard program. There was an MD in my class who said it was harder than medical school because you have to learn all of Asian medicine and all of Western medicine at the same time because we have to be able to deal with insurance companies and doctors and Western patients who come in with diseases with Western names. They don't understand the Chinese stuff, so we have to be able to translate it and create the relationship. So it's a 4-year.
Most of the people she teaches are going into acupuncture as a second career, or usually because someone they know is an acupuncturist. I asked her if there was more than one kind of acupuncture.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different kinds. People don't realize, it's funny, if you go to a doctor and you don't like your doctor, you just change doctors. People here, if they go to an acupuncturist, they don't like it, they say, oh, I tried acupuncture, I didn't like it, or it didn't work, or whatever. But we are as different, really. I mean, it's like, it's an art form. We're as different as different artists. Like, you could say, well, here's my set of paints, but every single person that approaches those paints is going to do something different with it, and that's exactly what it's like. Like, it amazes me, actually. Like, I'll teach a seminar and I'll teach a bunch of techniques, and pretty much every single person will come away with something a little bit different.
I moved on and asked her about the names of the different types of acupuncture. Camille tells me that the main type that is taught in the US at present is traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, and that TCM is just a small part of what Chinese medicine is historically, having come out of the communist era. She went on to describe acupuncture in the rest of the world, and I was surprised at how widespread the practice was.
There's so many different kinds because it's been going on for thousands of years in the most populated place in the world. You know, that was why I studied with that guy with an 88 generation lineage, because he can go back and he can say, well, there was this doctor in history, and that doctor had 3 different students, and these 3 different students went off in the different directions with it. And so, you know, and that's just in China. Then you have Japanese acupuncture, you have Korean acupuncture, you have Vietnamese acupuncture. And also, you know, it's been very popular in France and Germany as well as here. So there's all kinds of different styles. From, you know, different books, there's a kind that comes out of England that's 5-element that really focuses a lot on the emotional kind. So there's many, many different styles. Well, basically, I'm an electrician for the body. So electricity will control I mean, first of all, your brain is this huge reservoir of electricity, and it shoots electricity through different parts of the body via the nerves, and there's electrical impulses that go through the nerves, and those electrical impulses going through the nerves control your heart beating and the movement of your muscles, and it controls nutrition in and out of the cells, and waste products out of the cells, and all of that happens with electrical energy and electrical circuits. I mean, they call them meridians, but they're basically electrical circuits, and they call it qi, but it's electricity. And what happens is, like any electrical circuits, sometimes there are blocks in the circuit, there are shorts, there are areas where there's too much electrical energy built up in one place and not enough getting to another. And what we do with the needles is we take the metal in the needle and we just move the electrical energy along so that it's circulating again.
Okay, so...
But finding where to do that is what takes all the years of study.
Yeah. The treatment I currently receive from Camille is through bodywork she calls muscle melting, or a realignment of the body. The only time I have ever experienced needles was when I was a few months old, and it was determined that I wasn't exactly ready for them. Besides needles and muscle melting, Camille also works with Chinese herbs and not a lot with Western herbs. She does an extensive amount on nutrition. She also counsels people, describing health as something that comes from both the emotional and physical well-being of a person. Many people can benefit from acupuncture, as her clientele base shows. One of her patients was only 2 days old, another was 96 years. Acupuncture is supposed to be very deeply relaxing, Camille says, and most people go to sleep during the treatment. I asked her about differences in philosophy behind Eastern and Western medicine. After pausing to think for a bit, she explained that Western medicine is very symptom-oriented. Western doctors will analyze a symptom and give. Sometimes that drug might even cause a symptom, or something about the treatment elicits another symptom, so they give that patient another drug.
We don't chase symptoms around in that way. We look at bigger patterns and we try to correct the pattern. And, you know, like we look at groups of symptoms and we see those groups of symptoms as interrelating with each other. And then we try to correct it. I can find 12 different organs on the pulse. There are 3 different positions on each side, and each position has 2 organs, so that's 12 altogether. And then I'm not just, when I look at the pulse, I'm not just looking at how fast or slow it is. There's 33 different pulse qualities. And after I look at each organ individually, I can look at how they interact with each other. So I can tell huge things just by touching a person's pulse in a few minutes, and there's no cost to that at all. So one of the big advantages of acupuncture is that it's so much less expensive. You know, our medical system is so overburdened right now, and people are so afraid to be sued, so they run all these tests just to be sure about things. And you know, we do it a lot more simply and very effectively. It's an amazingly effective medicine, which is why I've been doing it for almost 25 years.
I then asked her one of my last questions about some of the common misconceptions people usually have about Eastern medicine. Camille tells me about the most obvious one, the needles.
Well, one of the biggest is that people, when they think of needles, they think of the great big needles that are used to draw blood. And they don't realize that the needles we use are as tiny as a hair. And in fact, they're completely flexible and bendable. Like I can just sort of twist them in knots. They're so thin and tiny. So people oftentimes feel afraid of the needles, but you don't even really feel them going in. They don't bleed when you take them out, or they very, 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 very rarely bleed. And you know, there's not that much to be afraid of.
Another misconception is that people don't think acupuncture has a lot to offer. This is not true because there are thousands of years of tested evidence that acupuncture really works, and it's been tested in one of the most populated places on the planet. The problem is translating those thousands of years into modern language and terms. This brought me to my next question about how Camille handled people who might be / are skeptical about what she does.
I speak to them in Western terms. In fact, whether people are skeptical or not, I never use the traditional Chinese language unless I'm speaking to another acupuncturist. I always speak in Western terms. And it's actually very easy in Silicon Valley because the engineers come in and I start talking about electricity, and then I put a needle in and they feel this little tiny zing of electricity, and then all of a sudden, you know, their pain is gone and they get it. They instantly get it.
One of my last questions is more personal. How did Camille see herself as different from other acupuncturists? Camille says that she doesn't think other acupuncturists have the same viewpoint of bridging the gap between ancient and modern times and translating the language into biochemical terms. Besides the older acupuncturists that come from China, Camille is one of the senior acupuncturists. About to end the interview, I asked her one last thing. If she could choose one idea about acupuncture that she wished everyone would understand or know about, what would it be? Camille comes up with 2 points. One is that acupuncture is really about moving electricity in the body. Second is that Chinese medicine in general has a lot to offer and that practitioners haven't yet learned how to communicate it, but Camille would like people to understand that there's a huge amount in acupuncture that's untapped. After I thanked her and left, I thought about what I'd learned and was surprised that there was so much more to Eastern medicine than a lot of people know. There are many different styles of acupuncture to choose from and many different techniques. So far, I had barely been brushing the surface of Eastern medicine.